All right, hey everyone. So we're back for another training. This is regarding macros and micros, or macronutrients and micronutrients, why they're important, how they relate to you. Okay, what are macronutrients? Macronutrients are the nutrients we need in larger quantities that provide our bodies with energy. These make up our total caloric intake, in other words, fat, protein, and carbohydrates. So this differs from micronutrients, which provides us the essential vitamins and minerals we need, but doesn't actually give us any caloric value, and we'll go into that as soon as we go through macronutrients. So starting off, what is protein? Protein is a macronutrient made up of amino acids, and that is essentially just a fancy way of saying building blocks of our bodies. So amino acids make up our organs, everything internally to help us function, our skeletal muscle, our muscle tissue, etc. So really, really important. And some other reasons why this is important. So muscle tissue repair and growth, specific to just normal function, but also if you are in the habit of training or athletics. Also enzyme and hormone production, it helps to aid in that, as well as your overall immune function. So why should you care, right? So there's a few reasons when it comes to your programming. The body burns more calories digesting protein compared to carbs and fats. What that means is higher protein diets can help burn more calories throughout the day by doing nothing else but just to consume more protein. It's also the most satiating macronutrient, which means it keeps you full for longer. And consuming enough protein aids in muscle preservation, which in turn keeps your metabolism firing in a healthy manner and moving along efficiently. So now that you know why it would be important when it comes to meeting your health and fitness goals, how much should you eat? So for general populations, those who don't have much training experience or are just now starting to get into it, 0.5 and 0.7 grams per pound of body weight is a typical range to consume each day. And for those who are looking for weight loss with muscle preservation or even muscle gain, and also for body recomposition, for those types of situations, then 0.7 to 1.0 grams is more appropriate. So in both cases, I would still err on the higher side. So either 0.7 grams ideally, or 1.0 grams as you're able to incorporate into your daily routine. Now we'll move on to dietary fats. So why are these important? Big thing is because it is another energy source, and fats provide more than twice the amount of calories per gram as compared to proteins and carbohydrates. So proteins and carbs provide 4 calories for every gram consumed. Fats provide 9 calories per every gram consumed. So more than double. For nutrient absorption, we need healthy dietary fats to absorb certain vitamins that are called fat soluble. That's just a fancy way of saying they need fat to be absorbed and utilized in the body. Also for cellular health, fats are crucial for our cell membranes, which protect and support our cells for long-term health. Now, how much should I eat? In a well-balanced diet, the typical range is typically from 20 to 35% of your daily calories. And if you're one of our clients, this has already been programmed for you depending on your preferences, but just as a general rule of thumb, that's a good estimate on where you should fall with your fat intake. Now, what kind of fat should you eat? Try to keep your saturated fat within 10% of your daily fat intake. So if your total fat intake is, let's say, 50 grams per day, try to keep your saturated fat to no more than 5 grams if possible. Also, try not to consume any trans fat. That's the worst kind of fat you can consume. And the remaining should come from unsaturated fats. So sometimes on food labels, you'll see monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats. That comes from things like nuts, seeds, avocados, oils like olive oil, that sort of thing. So just making the right choices can make a big difference in your overall well-being. Okay, so now talking about carbs, let's address the elephant in the room. For a lot of people, carbs might seem like the enemy, but they're really not, right? So in fact, when programmed into your diet correctly with the proper carb sources, which if you're one of our clients, then your coach has already done for you, it can lead to many, many health benefits. And what are these benefits? Your body breaks down carbs into what's known as glucose, which is used for energy by our cells, our muscle tissue, our organs, and having the right amount of carbs each day helps for optimal brain and brain function and mental performance. Certain types of carbs, which are called dietary fiber, aid in digestion, which is really important for a healthy gut microbiome. So that was macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. And now let's get into micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals. So micronutrients are the body's nutrients needed in smaller quantities, hence micro, and vitamins are organic compounds that our body needs to function properly. They'll help with boosting immunity, supporting growth and development, and helping cells perform their roles. Now, I'm not going to go through everything in this list, but if you've consulted with a healthcare professional, for example, or you know you're deficient in one sort of vitamin in particular, I'll just give one example with vitamin D. That's one that most of the general population seems to lack, and you can get naturally just through exposed sunlight. But if you want to make sure you have adequate vitamin D with natural sources, you can have things like salmon, tuna, shiitake mushroom, cheese, things like that. So for each of these, I wanted to make sure you had a list of what you can consume naturally to have these vitamins. And so the same is going to go with minerals. So minerals are inorganic substances, whereas, like I said, vitamins are organic substances that are essential to our body's functioning. They help with bone and tooth formation, nerve function, metabolism, maintaining fluid balance, all really important for overall well-being. Again, same thing here. I'm not gonna go through each one specifically, but I wanted to give you a list of actual foods and benefits for each. If you know you have some sort of deficiency, or you just wanna make sure you have a balanced diet that incorporates these minerals, you can use this as a starter guide for maintaining an adequate amount of minerals. So if you have any questions or recommendations, let your coach know directly. If you're not a client, you can email us at coaching@fertility.us to ask any specific questions so that we can provide more information. But that will conclude this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one.